Hey guys, and welcome back to Beauty in the Bookcase, where we take a book and we make a look. Today's video is actually going to start off theater month, which will be all of August, in which every Wednesday I will make a video on a play. So I have chosen 4 plays. 2 of them are more classic plays, and I don't mean that in like an actual like classical period sense, just sort of like more well-known famous plays, and then the other 2 will be newer works. And we are actually going to be starting it off, as I said, with Waiting for Godot. Now, Waiting for Godot can very much be classified as the marmite of plays. People either absolutely love it or absolutely hate it. Beckett's world is full of dark humor, sarcasm, and contradictions coated in absurdism. Now, Samuel Beckett was born in Dublin in 1906. He was a novelist, a playwright, a translator, and many other things. His stories are often steeped in dark humor and existentialism that's meant to explore the human condition. And his works were actually so popular that they garnered him the Great Nobel Prize in Literature. And he also earned the title of the Sea of Isdana, which is a literary prize from Ireland. And when I was living in Ireland, I actually had the absolute honor of seeing Waiting for Godot performed in Cork's Everyman Theatre, and I thought it was every bit as incredible on the page as it was on the stage. So yeah, that's just my 2 cents on that. Originally written in French, Waiting for Godot is set in this middle of nowhere town where our 2 main characters, Gogo and Didi, are waiting for a man by the name of Godot. So the play starts off with them returning to this place, not really knowing exactly where they are, why they're there, and if this was even the right date and time that Godot had asked them to meet him there. The only thing we do know is that Gogo and Didi are here waiting for this man because he is supposed to be able to get them out of some type of trouble they were in. So while a large portion of the play does solely focus on the friendship and banter between Gogo and Didi, there are also 2 other characters that make an appearance, and they go by the names of Pozzo and Lucky. Pozzo is kind of this absurd caricature of what I would assume is supposed to be kind of the aristocracy. He's, he has this like slave master relationship with Lucky, and I don't know, he just kind of has that attitude of entitlement, I guess. So much so that he actually keeps Lucky on a leash the entire time that they're together. Lucky, on the other hand, serves more of the role of sort of humorous release. He's often sort of the butt of the joke because he's not very intelligent, so it seems. He's not very verbal, but there is one scene in which he kind of goes into this whole spiel in Latin, which honestly, when you read it, doesn't make a whole lot of like sense, and it's not as funny as seeing it performed, and then you're like, oh, I get the joke now. But that's the point of plays. They're meant to be performed. So Pozzo and Lucky very much serve kind of as a distraction from the main plot, and they're sort of the only thing that seems to fill the time that is spent just waiting around for Godot to show up. And after they leave, our characters sort of go away after realizing that Godot may in fact never come, after this kid comes by and is like, hey, I'm bringing you a message from Godot. He said he's not going to be able to come today, but he'll be here tomorrow for sure. And although they feel that they may be stuck in this kind of boring loop forever and ever, and that Godot may never come, they still come back on the second day in the second act. So the second act is very much the first act with minor differences. And by minor differences, I don't mean that Godot finally shows up, but instead Pozzo and Lucky come back. However, this time Pozzo is actually blind and Lucky is mute. So it's a bit more of like a sad existential encounter with them than it was, you know, sort of this funny, distracting moment in the first time. And he doesn't even seem to remember them. So there does seem to be sort of like this weird sensation of disconnect where only our main characters remember being there before, even though they don't tend to remember a lot more. But everyone around them doesn't seem to remember them. So as the play continues, it just gets very meta and existential, and the curtains close without Godot ever having shown up, but it does leave us with the promise that they will be coming back the next day and waiting on him again. So one of the main interpretations of Waiting for Godot posits that Godot is actually God, and our characters are stuck in some type of limbo waiting for their salvation or their fate to be decided. So basically, this idea splits into two camps. The camp that believes that Godot will show up and come and save them, and the camp that believes that God is either dead or doesn't exist, and they are just sort of waiting in vain / are already condemned to hell. So one of the reasons why this is such a believed theory is because the characters are seemingly confined to this one place and repeating the same thing over and over and over again. They're relying on somebody to come and save them, and there is this child who keeps coming back and telling them that Godot won't come today, but he'll come tomorrow. Now, what does this little goat herding boy have to do with God, right? Well, there is a part in the Bible in which God says that when he returns, he will separate the sheep from the goats, the sheep going to heaven, the goats going to hell, which of course, this little boy being a goat herder instead of a sheep herder doesn't bode very well for our guys. So are we then to believe only that our guys are going to be condemned? Well, it depends which way you view it. See, for an optimist, there is hope. Although nothing seems to ever change, the promise of Godot finally coming to save them is what drives the plot. Gogo and Didi, despite having no evidence that Godot is even real or actually going to come, keep returning to this place, trusting that Godot will actually come someday. So the faith or optimistic view argues that Godot will indeed come. However, very much like in the Bible, as people, we are not to know the time or the place of the second coming. So God asks us to be ready. And in the case of Gogo and Didi, they very much seem to not know anything, but they still come every day, ready to meet the man who's going to seal their fates, which of course then does suggest that really is going to be a happy ending in which Gogo and Didi are saved. After all, if there's one thing we know about Old Testament God, is that he loved to test people. So who's to say that this recurrence, this weird limbo that they're stuck in, isn't actually a test in which God is trying to see how loyal and how committed Gogo and Didi actually are to being saved by kind of just not showing up for a while. If you're an optimist, you would say that Gogo and Didi will actually be rewarded for their patience and Godot will finally come. The opposite side of the coin is, of course, that Godot is either not coming because he doesn't exist or he is dead. So while some people believe that the area they're in is meant to be some type of purgatory, others believe that they're already in hell and their punishment is just to live this perpetual torture of thinking that there's still a chance, that there's still hope, when really the judgment's already been made and nobody's coming to save them. And this pessimistic view might also explain why Gogo and Didi are constantly butting heads about whether they should wait or not, and sort of kind of falling apart over and over and over again, because maybe that's part of the torture, to make this experience, this horribly torturous experience, even worse by turning the only company that they have against them. As I was mentioning just a little bit ago, the main characters do constantly bicker. However, this story is very much about their friendship as much as it is about waiting for Godot. Most of the time that they're on stage, we do kind of just get to see them being old pals. They're joking about each other, sort of just having regular banter, and, you know, once in a while having a disagreement and sort of being over it just to come back to each other each and every time. Now this of course begs the question, are Gogo and Didi really wanting to be friends with each other at this point? Or do they only stick together because they're terrified of just having to face this repetitive sort of life by themselves? Well, I saw somebody argue that Lucky and Patso actually have a stronger friendship than Gogo and Didi because at least Patso and Lucky are clear on their roles, right? Patso is the master, Lucky is the servant. However, these power dynamics between them, I would argue, make it difficult for there to be an actual, you know, solid friendship, because Patso's always gonna think he's above Lucky. And on top of that, Lucky doesn't really have a voice, either when he's mute or when he just doesn't seem to really talk, besides sort of his like dancing monkey routines, which obviously kind of suggests that, you know, their friendship might not be Lucky's choice, because Lucky's ability to decide for himself has kind of been taken from him. On the other hand, we of course have Gogo and Didi. Now, yes, they argue, but what friends have never argued with each other, right? Like, friends do bicker, especially the longer you've been friends. You've been through a lot. You've gotten to know each other, and they don't seem to really have anybody else to talk to. So it kind of makes sense that, you know, once in a while they get sick of each other and they just want some space and something different, right? So I would say that the fact that they feel comfortable enough being able to express their frustrations and their disappointments and their disillusions while still coming back to each other and choosing each other every time sort of suggests that their friendship is actually stronger than Patso and Lucky's, because they don't have this weird power dynamic in between. They get to decide if they want to be friends. They get to voice their opinions and they get to disagree without it sort of potentially leading to any type of punishment. Now, another important thing to look at is that Gogo and Didi do discuss taking their own lives. And of course, that means that for one of them, you know, they're going to be the one left behind after helping the first. And one of the main reasons why they decide to not go through with it is because one of them would have to be left behind, and they don't want either one of them to have to carry on this torture, which of course suggests that their friendship is not so much about convenience. Although, at the same time, it could be argued that it's not that they are scared of losing their friend, but they're just scared of having to put up with this environment by themselves. But if they really didn't care about each other, they wouldn't actually care if the other person had to face everything alone. So, what do you think? Is this a friendship of convenience? Is it true friendship? Or is it a mix of both? Now, of course, the last point that I do want to make is that this very much is a play about time. And that means that sometimes it feels like there's a whole lot of nothing happening. And that can be pretty frustrating. But then this has its own type of existential question, which is, is waiting really doing nothing, or is there action in waiting, right? Because waiting is a verb, which means it's an action, and actions obviously aren't nothing. So is waiting supposed to be interpreted as, you know, sort of like this giving up of hope and sort of waiting around for somebody else to fix things for them or to sort of decide their fate? Or is waiting actually an act of resistance? Is it Gogo and Didi kind of saying like, yeah, we are kind of seeing the same thing over and over again. Yeah, we have no guarantee that Godot will come or that anything will change, but we're still the masters of our own lives, and we still get to decide what we do with our time. So time is cyclical, but it's also maybe defiant, because this nothingness then turns into everything. There's nothing else for them to do but wait. And that in itself means that nothing, being now everything, has new value and new meaning. While they acknowledge that, yeah, they're kind of living the same thing over and over and over again, their constant persistence is an act of defiance that sort of says, hey, we're not done yet. And, you know, they're kind of just like flipping the bird at a world that seems to have abandoned them and completely forgotten about them. Even when they can't remember, they choose to stay and wait for this mysterious figure that might never come. So is it really a waste of time, or is Beckett trying to tell us something? That maybe Gogo and Didi's waiting is intentional. But of course, maybe we're just reading way too much into it, because sometimes a blue curtain is just blue. Think about it. We have these two characters repeating the same thing over and over and over again with minor changes every single day. What if Waiting for Godot is just a play about a play? What if Gogo and Didi are just actors rehearsing their lines? And what if Godot is the audience, the applause that they're waiting for? And Pazzo and Lucky's changes and the minor changes throughout the scenes and the acts is just them trying different things out to see what works, what'll stick, what'll make the audience love them. What if Godot is neither human nor God? What if he's just the concept of success? So what's it all about? At its core, Waiting for Godot is one of the hardest pieces of literature to define. It contradicts, complicates, and uncomplicates itself over and over and over again. But I do believe this was intentional. I believe Beckett wanted us to feel frustrated. He wanted us to feel confused and disoriented. He wanted us to experience what Gogo and Didi go through every single day. He wanted us to also be waiting for Godot. And what's our Godot? A clear meaning. We just want to know what he's trying to say, but he's not going to give it to us. Although maybe he will tomorrow. We never know. So guys, which of these theories do you believe the play is about? Or do you actually have another theory, which you can let me know down in the comments below? I do want to give a quick shout out to Ariana for suggesting this eye look, which was actually inspired by a post by Lisa Eldridge Makeup. So yeah, if there's any looks that you want me to try out, definitely make sure to either just tag me on Instagram or send me a DM with whatever you want me to try. Or you can also let me know in the comments if there's any particular look that you'd like me to see. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe for more videos like these, and definitely hit that notification bell so you know exactly when I upload every Wednesday and Sunday, and I will see you guys next time.